Hello everyone, it's Mrs. Tarangel with the Citizenship Academy. Today we are on lesson 3 of learning about the solar system. So for today, we're going to read another chapter in our reader, and I have some questions I'm going to ask throughout. And then when you're done with the video, you're going to complete the exit ticket about the chapter. So let's get started. So before I start reading, this chapter is going to be about the planets closest to the sun. So even though we know that there's more than 4 planets, we're only going to be talking about the ones that are the closest to the sun. So the question before I start reading that we're going to be looking for is how did people look at the planets a long time ago versus how they see things now? Okay? Our planet Earth is one of 8 planets in our solar system that orbit around the sun. The other planets are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. People have been looking at the planets for thousands of years. People from Mesopotamia, the Greeks, Mayans, Incas, and Aztecs were all interested in the planets. They used just their naked eye to study the planets. Now we have telescopes and other tools that help us get a better look at the planets. And that picture is the example of a telescope. So, how did people look at the planets before, and how do we look at them now? Give you guys 10 seconds to think about that. Okay. So back then, the Incas, the Mayans, the Greeks, they didn't have the technology for telescopes, so they had to use their naked eye. When you hear naked eye, it just means their actual eyes. They only could look at the stars and the planets with just what they had. And obviously over time, technology has advanced and they were able to create telescopes. So that's the difference between long ago and now. Okay. So before I read this page, I want to know how long does it take for Mercury, Venus, and Earth to orbit the sun? Now, when we talked about orbit, remember orbiting is when the planets go around the sun. When I say rotate, it's when it spins on itself. The 4 planets closest to the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are small planets. These planets have a rocky or solid surface. Mercury and Venus are closer to the sun than Earth. The other planets are farther away. Earth needs 365 days to make one orbit around the sun. That is the length of 1 year on Earth. The closer a planet is to the sun, the less time it needs to make an orbit around the sun. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It needs just 88 days to make one orbit. Venus is the next closest sun. It needs just 225 days to make an orbit. The planets that are farther away take much longer. It takes Neptune 165 years to orbit the sun. And our caption, the sun and planets. So, how long does it take Mercury, Venus, and Earth to orbit the sun? I'll give you 10 seconds. According to the text, we already knew from the previous chapters we've read, it takes 365 days for Earth to rotate, I'm mixing up my vocabulary, to orbit the sun. So that's exactly 1 year for us to make a one whole orbit around the sun. But because we are farther away than Venus and Mercury, ours takes longer. For Mercury, it only takes 88 days because as you can tell from this picture, it's a lot closer, which means it has a less distance that it has to travel. Venus is a little bit farther out, so it has a little bit bigger of a distance. So Mercury, it takes 88 days. For Venus, it takes 225 days. And as you branch out, you'll see that the orbits that these planets have to go end up getting wider and wider and wider. And the wider it is, the farther they have to travel, which means that their orbits take a lot longer, which we got to see because it takes Neptune 165 years. So in our lifetime, Neptune hasn't even made one orbit. That's what's like crazy about it. Okay, before I read this page, how did Mercury and Venus get their names? Okay. And this one's going to be pretty nice because it kind of connects a little bit to a previous unit we did earlier this year. Besides being closest to the sun, Mercury is the smallest of all the planets. The English name for the planet comes from the Romans. They named the planet after the Roman god Mercury. The Greek name for this same god is Hermes. Venus is the second planet from the sun and is closest to Earth. This planet was named after the Roman goddess of love. For a long time, scientists thought that Venus might be a lot like Earth. After all, it is close to Earth. It is about the same size as Earth, and it is covered with clouds like Earth. But this idea turned out to be wrong too. We know now that Venus and Earth are different in a lot of ways. Scientists had to change their ideas to fit the new facts. They have now concluded that Venus is much hotter than Earth. It would not be a good place for us to live or even visit. So this is Mercury on top, and this is Venus on the bottom. So how did Mercury and Venus get their names? Give you 10 seconds. Well, we just finished a few months ago. We finished our unit on Roman history, and a bunch of the Roman gods were named after planets. So Mercury was named after a Roman god, and Venus was named after a Roman goddess, which is really, really cool. So another cool thing I found about this page is the fact that for years we thought that we could live on Venus and we'd be perfectly fine. But because it doesn't have the same aspects of our Earth, and because it's closer to the sun, it's actually hotter, which means life can't sustain there. It can't live. Okay, now we're going to talk about Mars. So before I read this chapter, the question I'm going to ask is, what could the discovery of ice on Mars mean? So what does that mean? Mars is the fourth planet from the sun. It is named after the Roman god of war. I'm going to pause. So again, another one that was named after a Roman god. When you look at Mars in the night sky, it looks quite red. This is because the rocks on Mars contain rust. Many space probes and robots have landed on Mars. They have taken photographs and also dug up rocks. One probe that went to Mars not long ago found some ice. That was big news. Ice is frozen water. If there's water on Mars, there might be life. Some experts argue that nothing could live on Mars. They say it is too cold and too dry. Others think there might be life on Mars. They think there might be something alive down under the rocks. Still, others think there might have been life on Mars at one time, but there isn't any now. So I'll give you 10 seconds. What does it mean to have ice on Mars? Well, ice is frozen water, which means water. And it's super important to remember that, for us to survive, we need water, food, and shelter. And for Mars, it has water, which made a lot of people think, okay, if water's there, then there must be life there. But this is something that has not been proven, so they can't really say that. But it's still something that's really interesting to know about, that they have actually found water on Mars. So that's it for today for our CKLA skills. Don't forget to complete your exit ticket for lesson 3. It will help you to go back into the text. So if you need to rewatch the video to get the text information, please do so. It's going to help you to answer the questions. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.